All right. Bridge. It's not even the occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, it's an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which kind of suggests this could, it's not like uncommon. It's not noteworthy enough to like get its own thing, like the occurrence. This time, like the one time this thing happened, it didn't happen one time. It happened plenty of times to plenty of different soldiers. And because of that, they call it an occurrence, almost like it's just an everyday thing that happens. Because during wartime, people were getting killed all the time if they were captured by the other side. And it's pretty grim, especially considering the fact that you think it's going to have a happy ending and he's going to be reunited with his family. And then it's like, oh, nope, he's actually going to be killed right now. And all of this happy stuff was just an illusion. So it is pretty grim, but I'm just like brush home. Zoom, whatever this thing is, canvas. Yeah, I saw that several of you turned in things over the weekend, some of which were late, some of which weren't. And I haven't looked at any of those yet because I try not to grade stuff over the weekend, but I will get to it today or tomorrow. Okay. I published this on Canvas, but I'll also share my screen so that we can read this together. This is very French. There's like very French names in it. It takes place, I believe, in Louisiana.
Purposely left by a party of Texans whose canvas-covered wagon late in the day had crossed the ferry that cotton mice kept.
Cotton
just below the plantation. In time, Madame Valmande abandoned every speculation but the one that Desiree had been sent to her by a beneficent providence to the child of her affection, seeing that she was without child of flesh. For the girl grew to be a beautiful and gentle, affectionate and sincere, the idol of Valmande.
All right, so what's...
With what? Penance?
Patience,
thanks. He could until it arrived. Then they were married. Madame I was gonna say Voldemort. Valadine had not seen. Okay, give me a hand with this name.
Desiree.
And the baby for 4 weeks when she reached El Abri.
Y'all are reading Desiree's baby?
Yes, awesome.
Oh my God, that is awesome. Sorry. I love that.
Cow. Ain't that? Cow. Reaching out beyond the wide glint? No.
That's a short A.
Thanks. Gals that encircle yellow.
Stuccoed. That's just like a kind of
that's
like
a new word for me.
Maybe.
I'll write that one down. Stuccoed house. Big solemn oak grew close to it in their thick leaves, far reaching.
All right, never mind. I was just kidding. That was a joke, everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, we don't know anything about her parents. We don't really know what she looks like or anything, but we would assume that she would be white because he's a white plantation owner, and that's who he would go for. It would be very strange if he went for anybody else.
Well, I'm still questioning this. That woman must be a saint, or she must have did something to him because
he's just insanely beautiful. So
yeah, he's a man in love.
That idiot.
All right. We're at when the baby was about 3 months old. Randall, do you want to keep going? You want somebody else to?
Somebody else can read.
I'll take over, man.
Nope.
When the baby was born, 3 months old, I still can't say her name.
Desiree.
Desiree awoke one day to the conviction that there was something in the air menacing her peace. In the first, it was at first too subtle to grasp. It had been a disgraced spirit, and the very spirit of sin seems suddenly to take hold of him in his dealing with the slaves. Desiree was miserable enough to die. God dang.
All right, so something like he's changed again. He's gone back to his old ways. The love light has gone out of his eyes. So something has gotten a hold of him. I don't know. Something's going on.
She sat in her room one hot afternoon in her
nightgown,
listlessly drawing through her fingers of the strands of her long, silky brown hair that hung about her shoulders. The baby, half naked, lay asleep upon her great mahogany bed that was like a sumptuous throne with its satin-lined half canopy. One of LeBlanche's little quadroon boys, half naked too, stood fanning the child slowly with a fan of peacock feathers. Desiree's eyes had been fixed absently and sadly upon the baby while she was striving to penetrate the threatening mist that she felt closing about her.
It was. So let's keep reading and see like how she kind of processes through this.
Does anybody else want to read, or do they want me to keep reading?
Pass it to Jenny.
Oh, Genesis. Yeah, Jenny. Tiny. You can read Tiny. Look at Zane calling out people.
I like it. Jenny, you with us? I feel like it's a seance. Jenny in the room.
If Genesis doesn't want to read, Alyssa, you shall read it.
All right, we don't have that much time left, so somebody got to read or I'll read.
Go ahead, Ms. McLaren.
Oh my gosh, this book is
okay. Wait, did you read this one already? No, you didn't. She tried to speak to the little quadroon boy, but no sound would come at first. When he heard his name uttered, he looked up and his mistress was pointing to the door. He laid aside the great soft fan and obediently stole away over the polished floor on his bare tiptoes. She stayed motionless, with gaze riveted upon her child and her face the picture of fright. Presently, her husband entered the room and, without noticing her, went to a table and began to search among some papers which covered it. Armand, she called to him in a voice which must have stabbed him if he was human, but he did not notice. Armand, she said again. Then she rose. He said nothing. Shall I go, Armand? She asked in tones sharp with agonized suspense. Yes, go. Do you want me to go? Yes, I want you to go. He thought Almighty God had dealt cruelly and unjustly with him, and felt somehow that he was paying him back in kind when he stabbed thus into his wife's soul. Moreover, he no longer loved her because of the unconscious injury she had brought upon his home and his name. She turned away like one stunned by a blow. This twist ending here. Some weeks later, there was a curious scene enacted at La Brie. In the center of the smoothly swept backyard was a great bonfire. Armand d'Aubigny sat in the wide hallway that commanded a view of the spectacle, and it was he who dealt out to half a dozen slaves the material which kept his fire ablaze. A graceful cradle of willow, with all its dainty furbishings, was laid upon the pyre, which had already been fed with the richness of a priceless layette. Then there were silk gowns and velvet and satin ones added to these, laces too and embroideries, bonnets and gloves, for the corbeille had been of rare quality. So he's just like burning all their stuff, all the baby stuff. All
Black community. And there are large groups as well that say, well, she's just being used for her skin color and she's not really being appreciated, which whatever side you believe can be true with facts based on what you have against it. So it's so big that like when people try and get involved, there's more than just what's being shown on the surface.
Right.
And it has more to do than just whatever you think would be happening.
Yeah, Cece, fun little fact. We not exactly created it. During the time of slavery, the slave master split the dark skin and light skin. You got the house Negroes and the field Negroes. That what caused it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the house Negroes were treated much better than the fields.
Because they were lighter than the field slaves. Yeah, exactly. And
we created this.
Yeah, it's just been ingrained in our history, in our context, in our background for us. That
enforced.
And I imagine also, like, you're totally right about the like house slaves versus field slaves, but I would imagine it also has to do with exactly what's happening in the story, like slave masters impregnating their slaves and like winding up with half or a quarter black kids. And like the closer you could get to looking like you were white, the closer, like the more chance you had of not having to be a slave or like being treated better.
There is, sorry to cut you off, Ron. There is this story of this woman and her sister. She's light skin, but her sister is white passing. And she went to the grocery store with her sister, and her sister's also black, but she just looks white. And her sister went to the grocery store, and the cashier made the darker woman like do a check-in, and she had to go over their bills and how many times she's been there, but didn't do the same thing to her sister, who is just whiter than her. And she's like, this woman has been here more than I have. This is my first time. Why are you doing this to her? And then the cashier is like, well, it's just store policy. And she was like, well, why didn't you do it to me? So it's been around for centuries and centuries. It just takes a lot for people to actually say something or notice it.
True. In our current society, I like to call it, we're now realizing we should not be doing the whole, let's go with the European style. In our current society, we're going with the whole, let's be our normal selves and accept black culture, allow us to be more darker. And nowadays, the media, you see people with darker skin.
Yeah.
Like,
and
like coming from it, like I was like when I was younger, like I was simple-minded, so like I would be easy towards, or like be like, oh yeah, like the lighter skin is like the preference. But it's like in reality, I feel as though like I'm not even trying to like, you know, make it one-sided, but like the darker complexion, like they have more self-confidence in themselves, and that's
exactly. And they're with that, it takes a lot, because as me being a mid-tone, kind of like not light, there's some things that I can do, some things I can't do, but I will still be black and I will still be seen as dark skin. How unlike that one girl who went viral because of like her eyes, or on that Instagram photo, I don't even know what her name is, and everybody's like, oh my god, she's so beautiful, blah 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 blah. But that's because she just is light skinned, and that's because she did this, did that. You could be a completely terrible person, but as long as you're light skinned, everything is okay, you know? So it goes for any race, but people of color specifically are more harmed by it just because of history.
For sure. All right. Well, this is a cool conversation. I want to pick it up tomorrow, but the bell has just rung, so I'm gonna have to let you guys go. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, along with more stuff about the story. So,
indeed.
See you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Have a good day.